Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Migwi. This is The Viewpoint, and today we are going to take different conversation and look at the National Government Constituencies Development Fund. You remember there was a ruling that it will cease operating at the stroke of midnight on 30th of June 2026. But on the other hand, there are the MPs are pushing for its entrenchment or having it have an anchor in law. And there's critics who feel that NG-CDF has gone against devolution. So the question here is, what is the future of NG-CDF? Do we scrap it? Do we retain it? Or do we make a total overhaul of the NG-CDF? Now, for that conversation, I'm joined by Patrick Musili, Mbangula, who is a governance expert and also the chairperson of Kenya Water Institute. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Good morning, our listeners.
Yes. And also Kevin Osido, who is the executive director of County Governance Watch. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and asante kwa mwaliko.
Karibu sana. And Professor Nzioki Joseph, who is a leadership and governance expert. Karibu sana, Prof.
Asante sana.
Now, let's get into this discussion. And first of all, I want to get your feeling about all this debate about CDF. And I'll start with you, Bwana Patrick. What is your take? Should we scrap it, retain it, or rethink it?
Let me first of all appreciate for inviting us to this studio.
Yes.
And I say, before even we decide on whether to scrap this CDF, we need to understand the history about it. When did it come to operation, and what necessitated it to be put into operation? One, CDF, not NG-CDF, initially was started in 2003. And became operational in 2004.
Okay, allow me to cut you short. I'm told your mic has a problem. But Osido, I'll throw the same question to you. Do you think we should retain it, scrap it, or make a total reform?
So that's a very good question. And if you look at the context of things, particularly given the reasons as to why we are talking about whether to scrap, retain, or overhaul, bottom line is that Kenyans are looking for certain services to be delivered. And as Prof was already taking us through the history,
yes,
there is a very good reason as to why initially there was a proposal in 2002 by one of the, I forget his name, former members of parliament, to be able to provide a mechanism through which members of parliament would really be at the central of, ensuring that certain services are delivered to the people. Because if you look at the history of money and development, and indeed politics, the then president used to give members of parliament certain envelopes full of cash to go and, engage with their constituents, and to be able to go and ensure that certain aspects of the promises that were made during campaigns insofar as what then government would do would be accomplished. And if you look at the clamor around the review of all those processes, including the review of our political culture and our governance system, up to the review of, the conversations around the review of the Constitution, the concerns were, how do we ensure that that good work, quote unquote, is forestalled and is continued? And so one of the former members of parliament proposed the CDF, Constituency Development Fund, which would then be a fund that takes care of certain specific functions. And part of these, of course, included concerns around infrastructure for education, and also part of it was bursaries. We had concerns around security, particularly within the certain installations like police stations, chiefs, among others. Then we also had empowerment of youth, women, and persons with disabilities, particularly around their role in also executing affirmative functions. Yeah, and so that therefore is really the background of how the conversations around Constituency Development Fund began. But also notice that before then, we used to have a governance structure, which was called the Local Authority Service Delivery Action Plan, the last DAP processes, and then it moved to what is called LATIF, Local Authority Transfer Funds, based on our former local government structures. Now, it moved from how do we take this out of the hands of the politicians, particularly because of sustainability issues, and also ensuring that the roles that were being engaged or done by CDF within the political phase, and take note of politicians now, particularly the members of parliament. So it moved over into 2005, 2007, we began having Ministry of Local Government, where of course citizens were still at the central focus of, initiating priorities and plans for their development processes. But remember that as we are talking about this particular process, the clamor for a new constitution is already happening up to the referendum of 2005, the first referendum of the new constitution, and then now we had the 2010 constitution, which now introduces devolution. So if you look at the kind of history that we are talking about, the imagination is that there are certain functions that parliamentarians, particularly MPs, are supposed to be doing based on the resources or the financial resources that they are supposed to be given. And take note of the fact that as we are talking about all these governance processes and tools of governance, there are also other ongoing issues. For example, the Constitution introduces Schedule 4, which therefore says that there are functions that have to be exercised by national government and also by county governments. But also remember that at the same time, there are ongoing amendments to the CDF Act of 2002, with the first amendment happening in 2003, then I think the second one is happening in 2005, 2007, up to the latest, which was a 2013 Act, which is now under review in 2025. And with all these proposals are being driven by members of parliament to try and circumvent and ring-fence these resources for their functions. Now, what that means is that CDF moves from being CDF to now NG-CDF, which is national government. But take note of the fact that as we talk about national government, the Constitution talks about functions of national government and functions of county government. But then, in between the amendments, there are also functions that are being taken from national government. For example, initially, members of parliament in some of those amendments had decided that sports would be their function. They had decided that things like hospitals, would be their functions, which then they would undertake within and through CDF. But with the coming of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, those functions are now taken away. So part of the amendments that we see in 2023, in 2017, 2023, all the way to what we are seeing right now, with the desire now to entrench CDF into the Constitution, are trying to cure two things. One is the spirit of the Constitution, but two is also the place of the members of Parliament, particularly the National Assembly. Of course, taking note of the governance, and I'm sure that we will discuss this because we're just trying to build the history of CDF, NG-CDF. Part of it is also the leadership and governance structure, with the introduction of now a national board at the national level called the NG-CDF board. And then at the constituency level, we have the CDF committees. And then now you begin to ask yourself, so if you have a governor and you have a member of parliament who is presumably is not there in law, calling him or herself the patron of CDF, because that is also not anywhere, is neither here nor there, how does that play within the governance and leadership structure, particularly towards the spirit of service delivery and meeting the expectations of the citizens?
All right, Prof, given what Osido has said and how members of parliament are arguing, what is your take?
Thank you so much, Migwi, and thank you for inviting me here today. Thank you to my colleagues, Osido and Honorable Mbangula. I think we need to first of all appreciate the role that NG-CDF has played right from inception in 2003 through an act of parliament by Honorable Nzioki, the former member of parliament for Kalau. If you walk or if you go around the country, you'll be able to see a lot of development that has come as a result of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund. But then to appreciate the history that Osido has given us, CDF came alive under the old constitution. Now we have a 2010 constitution. We are in a new dispensation. And remember, our constitution is very clear. It creates a two-tier system of government. We have the national government with its functions according to Schedule 4. We have the county governments with their functions. And now the debate arises, where is the place of NG-CDF, you know, in the whole framework of the Constitution? And Migwi, remember, the 2010 Constitution came alive as a result of entrenching accountability, transparency, and also ensuring that there was a firm framework of governance. And MPs have three main roles, and one of them is oversight. The other one is representation, and the other one is legislation. Now, when we come to NG-CDF, and it's true, according to the ruling by the midnight of June 30th, 2026, NG-CDF as we know it will cease in its operations. Remember, the Constitution is very clear that you cannot introduce a new system of government outside the Constitution. So as a country, we are a country governed by the Kenya Constitution 2010, and any law emanating from the Constitution has to be in compliance with the same Constitution. Now, when we look at the NG-CDF and you try to look at the entire Constitution, where the current NG-CDF Act is anchored on separate articles of the Constitution, but then the mandate is not very explicit as per the Constitution, because when you go through the NG-CDF Act, you see mentions of Article 6 of the Constitution, you see mentions of Article 10 of the Constitution, but then when you look closely and keen, throughout the Constitution, we don't have a framework to establish the NG-CDF. So the issue about the NG-CDF is not whether we retain it or we scrap it, is first of all to ensure that whatever we do is anchored in law. And as of right now, and that is why NG-CDF has been able to be challenged successfully, not once, not twice. And I think what Parliament is doing by introducing the Constitution Amendment Bill 2025 is trying to cure that problem that has been recurring as to the legality of the NG-CDF. So I hope that Parliament succeeds in amending the Constitution to make sure that the NG-CF, as they are calling it right now, is entrenched in the Constitution. And then now from there, we can begin to talk about how do we make sure that the NG-CDF, its goals, its objectives, and its functions align with the Constitution, and also is geared towards serving the people without a conflict of interest. Because the challenges that we have been seeing with the NG-CDF is that MPs have usurped powers that are not supposed, they are not in their disposition. And with the entrenchment of the NG-CF, in the Constitution, and I believe under Article 204, I think now we can begin to have a conversation on going forward, because NG-CDF has played a very critical role in terms of socio-economic development. Then we may now start the conversation on how now do we make sure that NG-CDF has the proper governance structures, plays the roles that it's supposed to play without causing, confusion or without, usurping powers that is not supposed to usurp.
All right. Patrick, having said all that, MPs have been very adamant, saying that it has transformed lives, from projects and even funding projects in schools, the case of bursaries. But on the other hand, critics are arguing that it is undermining devolution. From your perspective, is it undermining devolution? And if so, how?
Migwi, thank you. Let me start by addressing the issue of the CDF, and we ask ourselves this fundamental question.
Yes.
Is it solving the problems of the Kenyans? And do Kenyans need this fund? One of the areas that we saw during the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, public participation, is that Kenyans were very responsive, and they said they really need this fund to be retained. And we saw it because parliamentarians went around seeking the opinion of Kenyans. And as an elected leader, you don't operate on your own faction. You operate on the interests of the people,
yes,
and the law of the land. And they must appreciate the members of parliament because they have tried to reinforce this CDF to make sure it's operational. Since 2003 up to date, they have been carrying various amendments on this law to ensure that it is not in contravention with the current constitution. And one of the areas that they were trying to address was one, public participation is done before this money is released, to get the opinion of the people. Yes, at the constituency level, you've got this money, but what are the priorities of the communities at that level? Number two, it will not be addressing, should not be addressing the issues that are being addressed at the county level in the devolution. So with this amendment bill that is coming, or it's already running the process, it has gone through public participation, it has gone through the parliament, it's now at Senate level.
Yes.
It is reducing 3 funds. One is NG-CDF, Senate Oversight Fund,
yes,
and GAV. And to me, what I'm thinking is, the parliamentarians should have gone a little bit further to also check on the money that is sent to the counties level. Is it addressing the development issues? Because when you listen to the people talking, they are saying the CDF, it's really touching us on the ground. It is a fund that is administered with very minimal cost. Very minimal cost. So you find that there is no much administrative cost in terms of paying salaries and running operations. No. It's a fund that when it's released, it goes directly to the...
Let me interrupt you kidogo. Bado mic yako nimeambia imeleta shida. But you'll continue still on that point. But Osido, should the conversation be about scrapping it or everything surrounding it? Or is it about increasing more money to it? Number two, should it be elevated to be handled at the county level?
Mike, the ongoing conversation, in my view, is a very good conversation. However, it looks a little bit misplaced. And it is misplaced because we are more or less trying to cure a concern that has been going on, and that concern is a political concern, which in my view is the role of members of parliament, National Assembly, in handling or executing their responsibilities against what Prof told us as the 3 roles of parliamentarians. So there is the level of leadership, governance, and management of CDF, which is a political discussion which is ongoing. And then the second bit of it is the constitutional amendment process, which of course, as we know in 255 and 256, can be either done through popular initiative or through a parliamentary process. And then there is a third question, which I want to, is a third question, which is your second question, which you're asking, the question of the resources, the financing.
Yes.
And so therefore, what we must do, and what Mheshimiwa Otiende Amolo has done, if you look at Article 204, is talking about equalization fund. So there is a fund which is basically a source of resource that goes to counties, certain counties, select counties, to be able to do certain things. So there's an amendment which has been proposed and is already ongoing, is now at the Senate, to be able to do two things. One is a 204A and a 204B. So 204A is talking about NG-CDF with very clear expectations. In that level, or rather at that level, it does not cure the political question.
Yes.
Because it is not telling us who is going to administer NG-CDF. Okay?
The question of who will be in charge of that.
The question of the role of the Member of Parliament, National Assembly. So let me just call it the role of parliamentarians.
Yes.
Because as Chair has also said,
yes,
there is also the Senate Oversight Fund, which is in 204B. Okay? So Senate and National Assembly is Parliament. So let me just say the role of parliamentarians, which is also another question, because if you look at the manner in which politics is done in this country, is as Kenyans say, vitu kwa ground, scratch my back, I scratch your back. So you give us NG-CDF at National Assembly level, and we give you Senate Oversight Fund at Senate level.
Quid pro quo.
So yeah, quid pro quo, as you might probably say. So the issue is that chances that whether Kenyans like it or not, that the entrenchment process, the constitution amendment process will fall are very slim. But still, it does not cure the management question, the role of the Member of Parliament, okay? So that you are left with the representation, legislation, lawmaking, and also oversight.
Yeah.
So we need to move further and ask ourselves, how does the proposals cure that political question, particularly around the management of CDF at the constituency level? Because I still hold the view that as things stand, ceteris paribus, all factors remaining constant, there is no hand of a parliamentarian in CDF by law.
Yes.
You don't see the MP. They are no longer patrons. They are not even chairs. They will tell you we don't even know the chair of CDF in some of our constituencies, how they are elected, how they are done what. It is a function of the National Board of NG-CDF, which is true. But if you look at how things are happening, and from County Governance Watch, we have engaged some of these fund managers who sit at the office of the Members of Parliament, National Assembly, at the constituency level. They are actually members of NG-CDF boards in their constituencies by default. But if you look at the NG-CDF Board Act, NG-CDF Act that creates the structure of the board, there is nowhere you will see either a PA or an assistant or a ward of the Member of Parliament. However, Mike, they play a very important role, because these are the people who will call the chair of the constituency fund, constituency development fund, the chair of that committee, and say there is a crisis, there is an emergency, and the MP has said we must address it first. But look at it, the law does not appreciate the MP as a very important figure. But the chair would rather listen to the PA, quote unquote, of the MP and stop other things that have been prioritized and say, we have an emergency that the Member of Parliament says we have to address. And funds will be allocated.
All right.
You move it further even to bursaries. Yes, Members of Parliament will tell you, we don't even know who gets these bursaries. But over time, Mike, we have seen them presiding over bursary functions. And if you look at any Member of Parliament, their social media pages, the biggest activities that they preside over in constituencies ni hiyo maneno ya bursaries. But if you look at the law, it does not create them anywhere. There's actually no space. So probably as I finish on this and we continue the conversation, mine is a proposal of a remodeling of NG-CDF, which I think is what you're calling overhauling, so that one, we look at the Schedule 4 functions. Remember, certain aspects of education are not devolved. They are national government function. Infrastructure, particularly on security issues, like police posts, etc., they are not devolved. So security as a total, in total, is not devolved. You have certain things like, of course, counties can engage in emergencies and other things. But there are also certain roads, infrastructural processes, projects of roads that are also not devolved. Certain classes, class B, C, I think up to D, are not devolved. But if you look at what NG-CDF funds are doing, they are largely attached to those particular programs and projects that are not devolved. So the conversation should move further into looking at how do we ensure that we remodel Schedule 4 to now allow those functions be either done at the county level, or we allow a mechanism through which the hand of the members of parliament will not still be seen, but that national government ministries and certain departments preside over those functions that are not devolved in a consultative and an effective manner through national government ministries in the counties and also county government departments at the county level.
All right, let's take a very short breather. We'll be right back to continue with this conversation. Stay with us. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. This is The Viewpoint. The topic of today is about the future of NG-CDF. Do we reform, retain or scrap? And Mr. Patrick, I had asked you about if CDF undermines devolution. If you may continue on that point.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me go back to my point and clarify and say the essence or the reason why CDF was brought into effect was to address the issues of marginalization of some communities back then, 2003, because some areas were marginalized by the government. They were not getting the resources like other regions. Number two, because of the multi-party system, there are some regions that were, if they were not the government, they were not being given the resources. All development agendas are not taking place in their regions. That's why this Member of Parliament for Kalau brought in this CDF fund to address those gaps and those deficiencies back then. Then with the advent of the Constitution 2010, which came into effect in 2010, it was meant now to ensure every region has got resources. Or it's well-funded, projects are taking place. That's why even the regions that were marginalized, like this part of Kenya, now with the devolution, we can see they are getting resources. To some extent, we can say the CDF, it's a good fund. But the challenges, as my colleagues have said, there is kind of a duplication of the roles, and these funds are becoming too many. And if I'm to be asked, I would say this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2025, that is now going through the Parliament, has gone through the Parliament, it's now in Senate. It is addressing the three funds, that is CDF, Senate Oversight Fund, and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. They should have also ensured in this constitutional amendment, they also bring in the issue of accountability to the governors. The money that is being sent to the county level through CRA, Commission Revenue Allocation, it is also utilized. My friend, I can tell you that we have got challenges with some counties. They get money, but you find there is little that goes to development. You find that all the money is going to the operations and the recurrent expenditure. We need to make sure our governors are also accountable. But now when I look at this amendment to the Constitution, one, Migwi, we need to understand amending a Constitution is a very expensive and a rigorous process. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and you start doing and you complete. This amendment started back, sometimes back, and it's still going. They have not completed the process. We may even go to the point of doing the referendum, which is an expensive affair. I don't understand why we are doing piecemeal amendments to our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. We should carry an overall need assessment of our Constitution and come up with an amendment bill that's going to address the gaps and the deficiencies that we are seeing.
Yes.
And what you're asking me is whether the CDF should be scrapped or not, or whether it's challenging or undermining the devolution.
Yes.
I can say there are some deficiencies because the money that's meant to go to the back to the people, to the grassroots, is not reaching. Because governors, they have been given a leeway to trade the money the way they want. So find all the money is going to recurrent expenditure. There's very little, and I can give you an example, but I'll not mention today, but it's a big challenge. It's a problem with our people because people are not getting the fair share of the government development at that local level. So when this referendum or this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill was taking place back in March, in May, people express themselves. They say this is the only fund that we can feel its presence. This is the only money that we can feel its presence. And you know now, let me tell you, Migwi, we must listen to our people and we must address the challenges that I have. It's either we retain the NG-CDF in the Constitution, we entrench it in the Constitution, or we make the money that's going to the counties level functioning by ensuring that governors are told now, the money that we're going to give you, ensure 15% or ensure that 12% is going to capital development or to infrastructural development. That is one of the challenges. Number two, you'll find that we've got a lot of duplication of funds, these funds. The devolution is giving money for the bursaries. You find the national government, even the office of the president. I think we need now to come to a point where we need to consolidate this money into one kitty that can really help our people. Because if MCAs are giving the bursaries, you find the MPs giving bursaries, you find the office of the president is giving bursaries, the office of the governor is also issuing bursaries. You find these so many kits, the bursary kits, are not serving exactly the needs of the people. And you find there's still some challenges with the funding of the education. There's still some gaps. So my proposal is if we can consolidate this bursary kit. And I think this should also be entrenched in this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill. They also bring the issue to do the bursaries because education is key. It's a basic need. It's also provided for in the Constitution that everybody, every Kenyan has got a right to access education.
Yes.
And I think this high time now, bursaries are very important, or even any form of support to our education system. It needs to be properly entrenched in the Constitution. We must protect our youth. We must protect our future. And the future of Kenya is when we give our youth quality education. You find today, we have one of the supreme laws of the country, but there are still challenges of implementing this constitution. And when it comes to bringing the amendments, they are kind of discrimination. Because why would you want to entrench more funds into this, into the constitution? And yet, even the basic fund, like now we ensure that bursaries are consolidated. We need to think about it holistically, as my friend has said. And we'll carry out a rigorous review of this constitution, not a piecemeal. And me, I tend to think it's the amendment that has been proposed. It's it's a very good one, and I must thank the members of parliament and also the senators. But please consider the local citizen, the mwananchi. We must protect them. We must protect the future of Kenya. And I propose the bursaries need also to be part of this. And I don't want to bring this bill. I propose they should not bring this bill at this point, and then it is shut down during the referendum.
When it comes to bursaries, Osido, or let me first of all engage Prof on this. Do you think, you know, we have the MP bursaries, as Patrick has put it, there's the MCA and all that, Governor. Shouldn't that be taken away from all those funds, be consolidated, and be channeled to schools? What do you think?
Thank you, Migwi. First and foremost, I believe the future of the NG-CDF lies in the entrenchment within the Constitution, so that now, from there, we can begin to address the political question and also the governance question on how this fund is administered. I think in the Constitution Amendment Bill 2025, it states that an act of parliament will operationalize, you know, the amendment. But then let me come to matters education. According to Article 43 of our Constitution, it gives every child a right to basic education. Basic education means both primary and secondary education. And providing free and compulsory education is a mandate of the Constitution to the national government. And I don't see the purpose of us creating so many funds while we can just create one fund, like what is being proposed, the Kenya National Education Fund, so that instead of saying we are capping capitation at 22,000 shillings, why don't we cap capitation at about 40,000 Kenya shilling? And now this will ensure that each and every child has access to education without being levied. So from where I sit, giving the mandate of the NG-CDF, the NGAF, the counties, those bursaries should be taken away from them, taken back to the National Treasury, channeled through the Kenya National Education Fund, through the Minister of Education, so that we don't have monies going through so many different hands. Just like one senator said, I don't understand why government will give someone else money to take it to a government school. So as a principle of governance, in ensuring accountability and also equity and also fairness and also transparency, let us create one fund, a Kenya National Education Fund, and let us ensure the education of our Kenyan children, our Kenyan youth is free and compulsory, just as it's mandated by the Constitution.
Yes. Osido, you know, critics have argued that this aspect of corruption and political patronage when it comes to NG-CDF, and saying that this fund should be elevated or left to devolved structures to take over. Should that be the only reason that we have political patronage? Because it has been argued that MPs have used NG-CDF for political mileage.
That is correct. And that is partly why I raised some of the examples in the question as to why it is the members of Parliament, National Assembly, who have to preside over this bursary issuance functions. And it's normally a big thing, you know. And it is largely because of the political question again. It is used as a scheme to mobilize votes.
Yes.
And for members of National Assembly who probably are not interested in the politics, they would rather not be really engaged. So they allow their committees to do their work. And remember that a lot of times you also have the, so the CDF committees have subcommittees. So that you, for example, have now in the case of education, a committee that presided over education issues, and part of those become bursaries. For some constituencies, they even have to consult with the members of Parliament whether the people who have applied are worth being given the bursaries, and then the main issue they are seeking to find out is the political correctedness. So that you are not fought as a chair or as a chair of the committee or as a chair of the subcommittee for having given people who did not vote for you. How they know that you didn't vote for them or not, I think is another question.
Yeah.
But the biggest concern again comes up in terms of Schedule 4. Because remember that there is only an aspect of this, that of education, that is devolved, and that is ECD. So you have higher education and tertiary education still left at the national government level, which therefore raises the question around the remodeling of how we are going to ensure that the huge sums of monies that go to constituencies through CDF are actually meeting the objective. And also, it must not escape our minds that in the budget 2025-2026, I think among the top three is education as a sector. In fact, education is the highest beneficiary at almost over 750 plus billion Kenya shillings. And if you imagine some statistics that I have here, that it is required by law that at least 35% of annual NG-CDF allocations go for education and education support and bursaries, which means that almost 40 to 50% of what each constituency receives actually goes to education. It is a huge amount of money. So what therefore that means is that if you look at the budget 2024-2025 and put it, juxtapose it with 2025-2026, the allocation of CDF at 51.8 billion, just for CDF out of 700 billion, it means that we are having almost 18 to 20 billion going specifically for bursaries. Assuming the conversation around counties is brought on board, and Mr. Chair says that most Kenyans said the only thing they can be able to see in terms of development projects at the county level are CDF-related projects. And you know that, of course, I cannot agree with him because I'm a defender of devolution, but that's not the issue. That we will discuss as we walk out of this studio. The biggest concern is amalgamating all these resources so that we look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is a transient picture. It goes beyond the politics. Because sometimes you want to ask yourself, so you say you are an MP for over 20 years. You've been a member of parliament for 20 years. And 20 years you've been presiding over more than almost, 50 million for, at the constituency level. So let's take the minimum of 50 million shillings per year on CDF, because averagely per constituency they get around 170 million. Yes. So even if you were to say 70 million or even half of 170, just specifically for bursaries, isn't it therefore a big concern for us to look at, one, the development indicators of this particular constituency? Number one. Number two, what is the kind of engagement that is happening between national, county, so tertiaries, education and higher education, and county government functions of education? Because even at the county level, we have governors also presiding over bursaries, and you ask yourself, is it a duplicity, like he said? Are we focusing on the right issues, or is it a political concern that we are seeking to cure? So even as we seek to amend the Article 204 to entrench all these funds into the Constitution, again, as I said, and I think I keep validating myself even as I speak and listen to myself, the biggest concern is the political discussion. Because somebody somewhere said, at a function we were attending yesterday for induction of Board of Management for certain schools, the induction process, that we need to create a framework within the Ministry of Education to preside over all these bursary funds that are given to CDF. Now, it already introduces another thought around having a Ministry of Education now to preside over certain specific aspects of NG-CDF, particularly on bursaries and also the resources that support tertiary institutions and also higher education. How that works, Migwi, still takes us back to the role of the Member of Parliament, which in my view is a conflict of interest issue they are trying to cure through the Constitution. But if you were to imagine the amount of resources, the funds that are going to counties through the National Government Constituency Development Fund, as opposed to what county governments receive, there are county governments that do not receive up to the total sum of what 2013 to 2024, 2025 CDF alone on budget. The budget for CDF in education alone for bursaries. There are counties that have not received that kind of money since devolution began. And if you look at now a total sum of, say, equitable share and also equalization fund, counties like Lamu, you ask yourself, when will they get to those kind of levels? You go, and if you come to Nairobi here, for example, where we are talking about almost 24 billion annual share of budget against on-source revenue among several others. Isn't it something that we should be able to be seen, especially looking at development against all the indicators that relate, particularly based on the investment that we put on just one angle, one aspect of what NG-CDF is, which is bursaries? So it's a big question that I think the people who sit around looking at the amendment of the Constitution, and especially Vitu Kwa ground, as Kenyans say, have to really emphasize beyond the political question of like public participation, what are Kenyans saying, but what is the real the aspect of the bigger picture. What exactly are we investing in? Which brings me to the final thing. When we talk about this thing of right to education, and we are saying it is basic, it is free, it is this, it is that, what is the cost of a child? You know, the cost of educating a child from ECD, pre-play, play group, PP1, PP2, all the way to maybe PhD in Kenya. What is that cost against the investments now that we have seen in terms of resources, financial resources, from 2013 when we began, say 2014, up to 2025, insofar as bursaries and NG-CDF is concerned.
Yes, indeed. And this conversation also, the former Prime Minister has waded into it, and he's very adamant when it comes to his position on CDF. And Patrick, he is strongly opposed in leaving the NG-CDF to the members of parliament and actually saying that it should be scrapped because he says it interferes with the oversight role of the role of parliamentarians. What do you think of this? And if it is to be retained, granted, should it be elevated to the county level?
Maybe let me reiterate this point and say the CDF fund is functioning and is serving the purpose of the ground. Because the citizens, they can speak for themselves and they say, yes, we can feel this money is working on the ground. We can see projects. We can see classes being constructed. We can see police stations being constructed. I think the challenge, as my colleagues had alluded, is the issue to do with how to make these funds operational with the minimal cost and also fight corruption. We need to agree, in 2024-2025, the government released 387 billion shillings to county levels. There is 22%, 22.5% increment this current financial year, money going to the counties. And I can tell you that with this money, we can educate our children if it's properly appropriated as per the budget. The challenge that is coming, and I can hear my friend there, is conflict of interest. If an MP is supposed to legislate, oversight, and represent, there is nowhere he's supposed to come and administer this kind of funds on the ground. So we must be very candid. We must defend the citizens. Because these are people who are innocent. These people, they do not make laws. These people do not legislate. We are the people that go to the parliament. We are the people that speak on their behalf. Unless when you carry a constitutional amendment like the one that has been proposed. And for us to be fair to these people is when they give us an opportunity to represent them, let's do it fairly, free, and in an open manner. Because why would we create duplicated funds that are going to the same people? One, we lose money because every fund has got some minimal operational cost or cost to make it operational. You find devolution, there's huge salaries to be paid. When you go to CDF, there's also some salaries to be paid, although it's minimal. So what we are saying is, can we reduce this operational cost by consolidating these monies that go to the citizens? If we are not going to make sure this CDF is properly administered, then we must make sure the devolution is working. And to cure the problems of our people down on the ground is to make sure devolution is working. And I tend to disagree with the call to reduce even the counties from 47 to reduce the numbers. Because one, there are some regions today when you go, you realize that there's serious development taking place. They are creating employment, and they have been marginalized for so many years. You would imagine when you go to Madeira today, you go to Anjia today, the development that you see on the ground, the empowerment that you see on the ground, the employment that has been created on the ground. So what you are calling is, can we now entrench the culture of fighting corruption? And that's why the government said we are going to introduce e-procurement in our system so that now we can reduce the cost of procuring our goods and the services. The little resource that we give to our people, it is well administered with the minimal corruption and with the minimal losses. And we can see the good spirit of the current government, because an increment of money that's going to the counties from 387 billion to 474 billion. That's, my friend, I can tell you, it's a good spirit to show that the government really wants the devolution to work. So our members of parliament, our senators, the people that are legislating on our behalf should now come into and help the government, ensuring that the laws that are proposing are for the pro-people, are for the people, to serve the interest of our communities down there, and not the interest of a few people that sit in the parliament or sit in the Senate. And that's what I'm calling. I'm not saying the CDF should be scrapped, no. What I'm saying is, can it be properly administered? Can it be properly entrenched in our law, especially in our constitution? So that now we get to know what is the function of CDF. And is it playing a role that can be played by the devolution or the man that's coming through the governor's office? These are the challenges that we are looking to. Also need to look at this Senate Oversight Fund. What is its role? What are the added advantages going to play to help the citizen of Kenya? GAF, what is the role? What is the responsibility? We need to ask ourselves at the leaders this level these questions. We must be true to ourselves, and we must be people that now are speaking on behalf of the people. If we can entrench this law into constitution,
yes.
If we can make sure the CDF is properly entrenched in the constitution, we make sure it's properly operational, and we reduce on the losses that are taking place, then I can tell you, Kenyans will feel the development of the ground. Because that is the challenge. They're saying the money is going to the county's level, but you are not seeing what it's doing, because it's just paying the recurrent expenditures. But now CDF is going direct to the people. So what we are saying is, can we now finalize on this process of constitutional amendment, make sure it is properly entrenched in the law, and then, as my professor, my friend, has just said, can we make sure it is operational? Can we make sure it is serving its intended purposes? And these are all the issues. Once we get these monies entrenched in the law, then they will remain with one issue and one challenge: to make it operational. And if we make these monies operational, then we'll solve the challenges of our people. They get the education, they get development on the ground, and we'll see the lives of the Kenyans improving. Of course, the issues of accountability also will have to be addressed, and that is something we are going to talk about next after this short break. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Good Morning Kenya. This is The Viewpoint. My name is Mike. We are talking about the future of NG-CDF. And now, Prof, let's say, for instance, it gets its anchor in law. What measures should be there to ensure accountability, and that this fund, now that it's anchored in law, it serves the purpose for which it was instituted?
Thank you, Migwi. You know, our constitution is very loud when it comes to issues of governance. Remember, we have the chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. Yes. And then if we succeed in entrenching, you know, the new NG-CDF, because that is what they are calling it, National Government Constituencies Fund, they have taken away the word development. Yes. It's important, the Act of Parliament that we will come up with to operationalize this fund should be explicit in terms of who does what are the roles of the members of Parliament, because the biggest problem has been that as much as members of Parliament want to say that they are not involved in the administration of this fund, actually most of our members of Parliament, most of our legislators, most of the time, they have taken the main duty of making sure that they administer the NG-CDF as their main role or their main function. Because all the time we see members of Parliament on ground issuing bursary checks, doing this and that, of which that is not their role. Their role is purely oversight. So when if we succeed in entrenching the NG-CDF in the Constitution, we have to make sure that the policies we come up with, the laws we come up with, the processes we come up with, and the procedures are above board, so that we can have separation of powers. Members of Parliament can do oversight as legislators, and also avoid waste. Because Migwi, I think just the other day we have seen members of a constituency suing their local MP because he has gone to build another school next to an existing school. You know, and that is pure corruption, because that what means is that someone is being given a contract to build a school that is not really needed. And if you go on ground, I believe we need to be very careful in how we utilize our resources, because in Kenya, as much as we may say we don't have enough resources, we have a lot of waste in terms of the things we do. Because, for example, now you can go, for example, in a constituency, and you find a school with about maybe 100 students. Then you just walk down maybe 5 kilometers and you find another school with 50 students. What if we combine these resources to ensure that, you know, instead of having too many schools with very few students, and of course, you know, putting into consideration the aspect of access to education. But it's important, even when we entrench NG-CDF, we make sure that it is in tandem with other agencies of the government, ministries of the government, so that we don't duplicate the roles. And then especially the issue of the bursary. Let us create a Kenyan National Education Fund. Let us take away the issue of giving MPs bursaries so that they can be able to distribute to students, because number one, a lot of resources go into wastage, you know, during that process. So it's important for the national government to create a mechanism where all monies that are meant for education go through one fund, just like we have HELP. You know, like when a student is going to university and they apply to HELP, then money goes straight to the institution, and the upkeep money goes straight to the student. So let us not, and at the end of the day, you find that these bursaries sometimes are given with favoritism, who supports me, who does not support me. But you see, someone who is administering the fund at the national level will know that there is a child in a certain school. Let's say like Isukoni, where I went to primary school. Okay, they will know that there is that child with this NEMIS registration number, and they will channel that money to that particular institution without giving powers to other people who are going to begin to, you know, weigh whether Joseph deserves to really be given a bursary. And the same thing with counties. The national, the county governments do not have a role in tertiary or secondary education. But you see, they take the resources they get, and then they begin to allocate to secondary education as bursaries, and also to colleges and universities, of which that is not their role. So this money should be agglomerated, consolidated, and we put those monies into good use. And then we let, if it is the county governments or if it is the MPs, this fund, we need to single out the kind of projects and the kind of developments that they should be able to carry, so that we don't, you know, we don't entrench this fund in the Constitution, and then it becomes to contradict other articles of the Constitution, or it begins to undermine the spirit and the principles of the Constitution 2010.
Yes. Osido, when it comes to governance structure of this CDF, who should be put in charge of it? Rather, should MPs be in charge of a development fund?
Members of Parliament do not engage in development. The only level or point at which they do that, in my view, are at 3 levels. One is a representation level, that at least there is a development project being undertaken, and your involvement at that point is either to consult, so that you exercise your appropriation role. So basically in the budget process, that there are finances or a budget has been put in place to be able to ensure that that project, that development project takes place. The second level is at the oversight level, where of course you can ask questions that, you know, the national government, Ministry of XYZ is constructing an X project somewhere. What is the status? How come there is, for example, no environmental impact assessment? Who are the stakeholders? And these are questions which you raise both at the point of the development, basically qua ground,
yes,
and also in Bunge. You can go and raise a question upon which, therefore, the minister can be, the cabinet secretary can be summoned to explain what is going on. And we have seen those kind of progressive conversations going on. But to the level where you are the person who wants to make decisions on how that is happening, that I think is ultra-vires. You're going beyond your powers, which you have not been given, because the Constitution has given you very clear roles that you are supposed to be able to do. And that is why I agree with Nzioki that once, and in my view, I don't think it's a matter of if it goes through. It is just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Because the kind of politics that have already been played there,
yes,
it's going to safeguard the entrenchment of these funds into the Constitution.
Yes.
And sometimes, you know, I like saying whether Kenyans like it or not.
Yes.
You will go to court, you will do everything you want to do, but ultimately the political goodwill, especially with Kenya Kwanza government, if the president likes it, chances that it will not happen, even when you get to the courts, are very slim. So when that happens, we must therefore attempt to cure the kind of questions that we are raising here and that have been raised elsewhere around who does what. So allocation of roles, particularly with Schedule 4 functions, in terms of what CDF is NG-CDF is supposed to do, and then also who does what. Because if you go to the constituencies, we've seen that we have committees, the CDF committees. So how do we bolster that? And what is the level of engagement between that committee and counties? In fact, Mike, this reminds me of something I experienced on 28th of August. I think that should be last week, when I went into a police station and outside it looks very nice, but inside it looks like it is a deserted place, because the wall has been properly done, it's properly painted. So I walked in and I asked who is in charge here. I was taken to the OCS. I went and met the OCPD. And then I did a letter to the MP of that area, and I copied the CDF manager, I copied Minister of Interior, and I copied some relevant people that I thought needed to respond to the issue. But then as my friend and I were walking out of this particular police station, there is at the gate a sewer had burst, and it was creating such a huge menace. So I made a phone call to one of my friends, Dr. Quinta from Nairobi County, and I said, but this thing is happening. Who is this person who should be in charge?
Yes.
Of course, I tried calling the chief officer, my good friend who has been everywhere trying to respond to some issues. He didn't pick. But within an hour, when I spoke to the Director of Environmental Health, this is a county government intervening into a national government infrastructure. And within an hour, the Kanjo people had arrived there, they had cleared this sewer thing, and they were even sending videos to my WhatsApp and saying, yeah, Mheshimiwa, this thing is done. I don't know whether he called me Mheshimiwa. I'm just giving Osido. This thing is done, and now you can go and tell the OCS. When I called the OCS and the OCPD, they were actually on the ground and saying, thank you so much. We didn't even know how to address this issue. And that tells you the magnitude of what we can be able to do when we work together. So that regardless of the angle that CDF takes, NG-CDF takes,
yes,
this thing is here for the people. The monies are neither for parliamentarians, nor are they for whoever thinks that this, we are the ones pushing for it, so you have to pay credit. No. These are resources that are going to the people. So the second thing, in my view, that we must be able to do upon underscoring who will be able to do what insofar as Schedule 4 is concerned,
yes,
is to also underscore how do we work together as both county and national government players within this particular spectrum of the context, yes, where Kenyans call vitu kwa ground. And then the last thing, in my view, is to take note of the governance structure. And of course, once we've identified who does what, is also to aim to respond to some of the questions raised by the Controller of Budget and the Auditor General, which is largely why the evidence that went to the court did not favor CDF, because they were saying in some constituencies there are no records. The kind of no audit reports, no minutes of committees to approve plans. We cannot see cash books. There are no bank statements. Those are things that should not be happening, especially when we talk about transparency and accountability.
Yes.
So the concerns and questions also that have been raised by the Controller of Budget and the Auditor General through their reports, I think those are some of the lessons that we must be able to learn in terms of strengthening certain weaknesses.
All right, gentlemen, I want us to close this discussion with the way forward. And I'll take that as your closing remarks. What do you think should be the way forward in this whole debate regarding NG-CDF? And what do you think is the future of NG-CDF?
Thank you very much. Let me say that in Kenya, we don't seem to be having serious challenge of resources. The challenge that we are now facing as a nation is governance issues, leadership and governance issues. And we can see it very clearly if we got so many kids that are funding the bursaries for our children. If we can consolidate these kids or kitties, we can come with one fund that will be able to cater all the education needs of our children. And that is my call. If today Migwi have been given a chance to sit in a national parliament, one of the amendments that I'll bring or propose to be added among the 3 funds that have been created is to create a national education fund that will consolidate all those bursaries from MCA and governor's office to parliament or CDF to even the president's office. We consolidated to make it one fund. Number 2, I'd also cause a commission to be formed or kind of a body that will look into the cost of education per child in Kenya. Because for us to consolidate these funds, we must be informed by something. We need to do an analysis. What would cost a Kenyan government to educate one kid from nursery school to university? And then we ensure that education is free for everyone. That is my call. Then we can leave the CDF, we can leave the other bursaries or the other monies to be administered as per the constitution. But let us address the issue of governance. That's where the challenge is.
Osido.
Mine is a call to the people of Kenya. Thank you for exercising accountability. We are doing very well, despite some of the challenges like abductions and many things that we continue to experience. But the most important thing in my view is what kind of legacy are you leaving? Today we are talking about NG-CDF and the kind of reforms that need to take place, whether to scrap, whether to retain or to overhaul. But the question that begs is, depending on what angle it takes, what is your space in holding the leadership accountable? Whoever will be in charge of this particular fund, what is your space in making your voice count insofar as prioritization and allocation of funds, and then ultimately holding the leadership to account? You have a role to play. We can do the talking here, but the action is with you wherever you are. God bless you.
Indeed. Prof.
Thank you, Migwi. I believe the future of NG-CDF lies in the entrenchment of, in the Constitution, and then making the relevant laws thereof. And then after that, addressing the leadership and governance issue. We have to take very serious issues of accountability, issues of being good stewards, because as matters stand right now, we have a lot of waste within our respective, governance structures, be it in the county, be it in the national government, and also in the current NG-CDF. So we should take it to our stride. NG-CDF has played a very critical role in terms of socio-economic development, and if we are going to succeed in getting the NG-CDF, we have to ensure that the resources allocated to that particular fund work for the people. And then we address the issue of separation of powers. We have to ensure that members of parliament just exercise their exclusive roles of representation, oversight and legislation, and then let technocrats, let people who are responsible in administering the fund carry out their work to the satisfaction of Kenyans.
Indeed. Gentlemen, your time is very much appreciated here on Good Morning Kenya. That is Professor Nzioki Joseph, who is a leadership and governance expert, Patrick Musili Mbangula, who is a governance expert and chairperson of the Kenya Water Institute, and Kevin Osido, who is the executive director, County Governance Watch. This is where this conversation ends, but don't go too far. I'll be back with yet another conversation about accelerating e-mobility in the country. Stay with us.